Well, 23-year-old right-wing Canadian provocateur Lauren Southern is the author of the bestseller Barbarians: How the Baby Boomers, Immigration and Islam Screwed My Generation. She's also just made a documentary about the plight of white farmers in South Africa called Farmlands. And she was due to fly into Australia tomorrow morning to start a tour of Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide and Brisbane. But she hasn't been able to secure a visa despite applying months ago. In March, she was banned from entering the UK in similar circumstances because of her provocative statements on Islam and immigration. So is our government trying to ban her by stealth now, by just prolonging the visa process so she misses out on her tour dates? We're waiting on answers from the Home Affairs Minister, Peter Dutton, but Lauren now joins us on the line from Toronto, where it is the middle of the night. You're the centre of attention, Lauren, right now, but you'd much rather have a visa, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, and I'm hoping that's going to be the result. I mean, we've had pushback. Oh, my goodness, New Zealand has been a nightmare. The government there has not been so welcoming to Stan and I, and we're still hoping for Australia. We're still hoping that our immigration lawyers are going to push through and the show will go on. We're not illegals. We're not trying to get in the country and change the culture for the worse. We aren't trying to go in there and take from the welfare systems. We are there to contribute new ideas to the culture and to bring some excitement and debate, and then go back to our proper countries.
Now, Lauren, so you've been planning this trip to Australia and New Zealand for many months, and you did apply for a working visa about 4 months ago. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've had the applications in, and we've been waiting, and they just keep sending us new hurdles to jump through. I've been told, of course, I'm not an immigration lawyer, but we have them working with us. We've been told that it's unprecedented what they're seeing. But, I'm not surprised that they're dragging out the process. There are so many people that are offended by free debate and free speech and offended by ideas that they disagree with these days that sometimes governments cower and think it's just easier to play into the hands of people who are totalitarian, and it's scary. That's a very scary precedent for free speech and a very scary precedent for nations that are supposed to be based on liberal values, based on the idea of free inquiry.
And do you think that, certainly this is the message you've got from New Zealand, that the reason that you're having such difficulty getting into Australia and into New Zealand is because governments and authorities are afraid of Antifa and the sort of radical left protesters, and that they will turn violent?
I actually think a lot of it right now is Islamic communities. Unfortunately, unnecessarily, I have criticized radical Islam. I have criticized the increasing blasphemy laws that have been brought into our societies, and you won't see Christians push back against governments. You won't see Christians violently attack people for criticizing their religion like you do with Islam. You have things like the Charlie Hebdo attack happen. You have terrorist attacks happen. You have these mass protests against free speech. And in New Zealand, it was the Islamic community that created a petition to get me banned. And he said they don't think speech includes the ability to criticize Islam. I'm sorry, but that's exactly what free speech is. And someone needs to really teach them what free speech means before they come and immigrate to Western nations, because clearly they were not aware. And it's scary because I think governments, what happens is the more peaceful person loses out in these kind of battles. The person who is not going to attack you, the person who is not going to lie and slander about you really loses out, because the government is always going to be far more afraid of the people who are going to commit violence and far more afraid of the people who are going to cause trouble for them. So because I've been very peaceful in my approach, because Stan has been very peaceful in his approach, governments aren't afraid of us. And that hasn't, so far, it's not working out well.
And it mustn't be any surprise to you that you're having these difficulties getting into Australia and New Zealand, because after all, only 3 months ago, you were banned from the UK. Tell us about that.
Right. So in a very strange situation, I was coming into the United Kingdom to meet with some friends and to work on some projects with Tommy Robinson. And I was detained at Calais and questioned under the Terrorism Act, Schedule 7, which, by the way, I have been convicted of nothing. They even said they had no suspicion of me being a terrorist. And they asked me all sorts of questions, like what kind of politics do I have? Am I a radical Christian? How do I feel about far-right terrorism? Of course, I told them I found terrorism abhorrent. I had no idea why they were asking these questions. And hours and hours and hours later, it was the next morning, I got a letter in the detention center from the government saying I had been banned from the country for racism. But the example they gave of racism was my criticism of Islam. I did a social experiment to compare all of these articles from Huffington Post and Vice questioning, was Jesus Christ a gay man? Jesus Christ may have been a gay man. All these different accusations that Jesus was gay, and I decided to see what would happen if you made the same accusation of Allah. Of course, I got my answer, and the answer is you get banned from the UK for hate speech, for racism, even though there's nothing to do with race when it comes to talking about Islam and homosexuality. So, a very bizarre situation. I think it was completely unnecessary and illegitimate. But it seems that other countries are looking at that and completely ignoring how illegitimate it is, completely ignoring that the accusation of racism is completely inaccurate, and they're taking the easy route of just trying to block free speech.
And so what are your plans coming to Australia, if you do manage to come eventually for your speaking tour all around the country? What are you going to be talking about?
Well, I think the biggest question that needs to be addressed right now, and I do believe we are going to keep trying very hard to do this tour and make it happen, because there are so many people that are ready and open to hearing our ideas, so many people that are on the fence, and so many people that are supporters and are frustrated with the state of their nation right now. And what we are going to be talking about is the absolute indoctrination of our society and culture right now by progressive Marxism and the shutting down of free speech, the shutting down of free inquiry, and the important facts, statistics, and ideas that are being ignored right now in popular culture because we are too afraid. We are too afraid as individuals. We are too afraid as media. We are too afraid as politicians to address these questions that are going to impact our future, whether they be questions of multiculturalism, questions of gender relations and feminism, or simply questions of should we be a culture that supports free speech. These are the most important questions of our age that are going to forge our future and the future for our children, and will decide whether the Western world will even exist 50 years to 100 years from now. We have to answer them, and the only way we can do that is if we allow the questions to be asked in the first place.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, I mean, we can't capitulate on free speech. And just because people are threatening violent protests, if you reward violence, obviously you get more violence. And I'm sure that's not what our government wants.
Of course. Yeah, I wish more people realize that. I wish more people realize that continuing to cower to people who make threats and radicals, it never works out in the end. I mean, as we can see just in strategy, don't negotiate with terrorists, right? That's been an age-old saying of any military strategy ever. And quite frankly, people who are threatening others because of their ideas, that's exactly who they are. They shouldn't be negotiated with. The people who should be respected and upheld are the people who are approaching it peacefully and want to have a proper debate. And I'm hoping that the Australian government will understand that and take that route.
Now, Lauren Southern, you're also promoting your documentary on South Africa, Farmlands, which is a really excellent movie. I have just seen it. So tell us just a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, sure thing. So earlier this year, I went to South Africa, and honestly, I didn't have an idea in my mind of what I was going to uncover there. I had heard from more far-right corners of the internet that there was a white genocide going on. I had heard from more left side of the internet that it was all kind of exaggeration, and of course the only way to find out is to go yourself. I went there, I spoke to people on the ground, I spoke to government members, I investigated and spoke to individuals who clean up crime scenes, and the things that I uncovered, the stories that I heard, some of the most shocking and disgusting stories, things out of horror movies that have been completely and utterly ignored and even covered up by the mainstream media.
It's incredible.
And not only that.
There was one story that just stuck in my mind, which was so horrifying. It was hard to believe. I think you were interviewing a woman who does forensic cleanups of crime scenes, and she described, it's almost too horrible to talk about, but having to clean skin off a bathtub where a 12-year-old had been basically boiled to death.
Yeah, and what was terrifying is we could drive 5 minutes to a house down the road from someone who had told us a horrific story like that, and the next neighbor would have a similar story, whether it be about their own family or a close family friend. We're talking people's mothers having their eyes gouged out with forks, children being raped and stabbed to death and tortured for days, just untold horrors that the world needed to know. And the media, this is the thing, these are people. The world has trouble seeing white people as victims. They have been taught so often that white people are always the oppressor. White people are always the colonizer. They are always the evil one, and they can't be victims. But that is just not true. Everyone of every skin color, of every gender, every sexuality can be a victim of crime and discrimination, and that is clear. You see the South African government saying things like, shoot, kill the Boer, or at least the EFF party. You see the ANC, the ruling party, say we are going to take white land without compensation. White people can be victims, and it's on an individual basis. It's on a nation basis, and we need to accept that and move forward with that reality to help these farmers. I know people don't like that narrative, but it's not a narrative. It's just reality. It's truth.
Absolutely. Well, look, great to talk to you, Lauren. Thanks for coming on the line, and good luck. I hope you managed to get your visa and that we see you in Australia soon, and hopefully we can maybe talk again. But the point is, I think that, people can disagree with what you say, and you do say a lot of provocative things that maybe make people sit up and pay attention to issues that they wouldn't normally be, prone to talk about. But if they disagree with you, they can mount an argument that combats what you say rather than just shouting you down or denying you a platform.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And hopefully I will see you in person.
That's right.
Sometime soon.
Thanks a lot, Lauren. That was Lauren Southern on the line from Toronto, where she's waiting until she gets her visa before she can start her Australian tour, which was supposed to be landing tomorrow morning. You're listening to Miranda Live. I'm Miranda Devine, coming to you live from the Daily Telegraph newsroom in Sydney. Now, no sooner had we hung up from Lauren Southern that we received a response from Peter Dutton's Department of Home Affairs. And it says, the department is aware of this matter and wishes to clarify what is being reported in the media. The individual concerned, Lauren Southern, applied for an electronic travel authority, which is the equivalent of a tourist visa, for which they were ineligible. The individual has a visa application before the department, which remains under consideration. Well, that's correct. That's the work visa that she applied for several months ago. the statement continues, all non-citizens seeking to enter Australia must meet the character requirements set out in the Migration Act 1958 and can be refused a visa if they fail to do so. For visitors who may hold controversial views, any risk they may pose will be balanced against Australia's well-established freedom of speech and freedom of beliefs, amongst other relevant considerations. End statement. So it sounds as if Lauren might not get her visa, that her controversial views may render her ineligible to come to Australia and do the speaking tour that her Australian fans have already paid a lot of money for tickets for, or at least what that tells us is that her visa is well and truly still up in the air just a week before she's meant to be touring the country. And of course, she was supposed to arrive on a plane. She's supposed to be on an aeroplane right now from Canada. So on the line is the man who is going grey trying to get Lauren Southern into the country. Her tour promoter, founder of Axiomatic Media, Luke Isaac. Thanks for your time, Luke.
Not a problem, thank you. Yes, I'm counting the grey hairs.
Yeah. Now, what do you make of those comments from the Department of Home Affairs? Character requirements, are they lacking?
Are they lacking? Well, you know, that's an interesting one. It's kind of like the ambiguous term hate speech that's been bandied around New Zealand through many of the hard left groups in Australia. You know, it's one of those things. Neither of these individuals have criminal records, and that's been made clear, and it's documented, and it has been sent to the department. The character requirements, according to Mayor Phil Goff,
he's the Auckland mayor.
The Auckland mayor, sorry, thank you for giving it scope. Look, we basically had the Auckland mayor come out and tweet that neither Stefan nor Lauren would be welcome at any council-owned venues 18 minutes before we received a call from the Bruce Mayton Theatre, where we were booked to play on August 3rd. And, you know, we thought maybe he just got the wrong end of a Vice article, that he believed hate speech was something they were a part of. And as he started tweeting about these white supremacist, eugenics-loving neo-Nazis, we thought, hang on a minute. So we dig back and we look at the character, like many hard left in our government here, and we're seeing him hugging Yasser Arafat, his arm around Fidel Castro.
This is Phil Goff, the Auckland mayor.
That's correct. Yes, he has a very colourful history, and we thought, no, this is a man who... and he also allowed Hezbollah to protest against Israel on council property. So
okay,
thought, well, this is a movement.
Yeah, Luke, let me ask you the question. She's being accused of being a Nazi, a racist, and so on. You know Lauren Southern. You are bringing her out here. You're putting your reputation on the line to do that. Is she any of those things?
Oh, absolutely not. And may I say, the hard right hates us and her as much as the hard left. You know, we've got countless emails and messages that she's a race traitor. You know, she's not hard enough for them, and she's certainly not left enough for the left. So I don't know how you please everybody. In terms of her narrative, I didn't get to hear your entire interview with her, but nothing that her or Stefan have come to talk about or believe in is anything controversial to the conservative Australian population, i.e. protecting our borders, the radicalisation of Europe by radical Islam, and whether we want that here, and the South Africa situation. So, you know, Minister Dutton has been very vocal about these things himself, and you know, I believe he'll make the right decision. I'm hopeful that he'll make the right decision. Okay,
and do you have any back channel knowledge of that?
If I did, would I tell you? Honestly, no. There's no statement from Minister Dutton to us at all, and you know, we have rolled the dice in the lap of those who consider themselves gods in the immigration department, and we really hope that this tour can go ahead, because there are thousands of people across the country right now who are dying to listen to these two speakers. And they're just conservatives like you and I.
Yeah, now, look, I should have explained to everybody that Lauren Southern isn't coming alone. She's coming with another Canadian commentator or provocateur called Stefan Molyneux. I don't know as much about him. Tell us a little bit about what Stefan's all about.
Stefan is a career philosopher. You know, he's a best-selling author, and he's an absolute YouTube rock star. You know, along the lines of Dr. Jordan Peterson in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
He's carved out a niche for himself. The Art of the Argument is an absolute must-read book. Excuse me, I am losing my voice. He's an absolute must-read book, The Art of the Argument by Stefan Molyneux, and it really does come down to, you know, how you distinguish truth from lies in this era where political correctness has totally taken over the conversation, where comedians can no longer talk on university campuses without fear of litigation, and you know, the chilling effect that PC culture has had on civil conversation and discourse.
Yeah, it really is. And I think Stefan Molyneux also talks quite a lot about the attack on masculinity, this idea of toxic masculinity, as Lauren does.
Yes, he does. And again, that's another really tricky subject, you know. Lauren is very well versed in what she speaks about. You know, we all have our areas of specialty. Stefan is very, very big on philosophy, immigration ad nauseum. Lauren is a documentary filmmaker and journalist. You know, they've both been described as provocateurs. Now, neither of them are Milo Yiannopoulos. And when we're booking these tours, you know, everyone, the first question they ask is it Milo Yiannopoulos? And no, Milo is a self-described, his character is a troll, and he's made great headlines. He's done a lot of really good work, and but these two are very different characters to that. They are much more about the facts of the subjects they know a lot about. They go microscopic rather than painting in just big broad strokes on the things they specialise in, like South Africa, immigration ad nauseum.
They're polemicists rather than sort of professional trolls, I guess, is a good way of describing Milo Yiannopoulos.
There is a place for all of us.
That's right. He's a performer, but I think you really can't take a lot of what he says seriously. Well, look, Luke, good luck with the tour. Let us know how you go, and let's hope that Lauren and Stefan do make it into the country.
Thank you so much.
That's tour promoter Luke Isaac.